In this segment, Stephanie Miller welcomes Tristan Smith. Tristan helped prosecute the Trump University fraud case, and the two discuss the latest in the New York civil case, what could happen in Georgia, Florida, D.C., and more. Here's Stephanie.
I mean, you must be watching this fraud trial. We're so happy we could get you this week. You just must say, like, you're the guy that prosecuted Trump University. I keep saying his business model has always been fraud. This is nothing new. It's just the sort of bill coming to due this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really true. This is, 15, 20 years in the making. It really looks for all the world like once he got his hands on more of the business empire and he got his hands on the money, and then spent a lot of the money that he had managed to inherit from his father and steal it away from his other relatives, by the way. Then when he was looking for other ways to come up with more cash, it looks like what they did was to figure out that, hey, if we just lie about how much all these buildings are worth, the banks will just hand us money. And that was his liquidity. That's what he used to finance his lifestyle. That's a lot of what we're kind of missing about all of this is like, why would someone bother to do this? And the answer is because he lives way beyond his means. And it was all financed by debt. And a lot of the debt that he got, a lot of that money that he got, the cash that he got from the banks was because he lied to the banks. And all of that constitutes fraud. And all of it is actionable with the New York Attorney General's office. It doesn't have to be that the bank sues for it. The state can sue for it on behalf of the people of the state of New York. And that's what's happening here. And that's the big picture of what's happening. But this is a long time coming.
Yeah, I mean, we overuse the word unprecedented, of course, with Donald Trump, but you tweeted about Elise Stefanik to get the fact that a United States Congresswoman would try to interfere in a local Manhattan trial on his behalf. You said Elise Stefanik should be thankful she isn't a lawyer, otherwise her, quote, ethics complaint would likely be enough to get her disbarred for deceptively trying to obstruct a New York Attorney General enforcement action, an official New York court proceeding. And she's clearly working as a cutout for the Trump legal team, right?
That's what it looks like, and the very fact that she's getting involved in this muck, I mean, it shows that there really isn't kind of a bottom for her that we found yet for like how low is she going to sink. But this is the kind of behavior that when it's been engaged in by attorneys on behalf of Trump has managed to get their bar licenses suspended or disbarred. So that's why I said what I said about Stefanik. This is the sort of thing that would have potentially resulted in a true and legitimate censure by the House of Representatives in the pre-Trump era. But of course, now we've entered this era of shamelessness where there is no such thing as something for which you can get censured.
Yeah, well, and you actually talked a lot more about the Republican Party as well on Twitter. You said Ohio Republicans are refusing to accept a landslide victory of Issue 1 on Election Day, where Ohio voters approved protection of reproductive rights in Ohio state constitution by 13 points. And you said, yes, by 13%. That's not a typo. Insurrectionists, all of them. I mean, you also have like Judge Cannon apparently working as Trump's defense lawyer too. Like, I mean, a lot of experts are saying that, she's trying to prevent Fani Willis from being able to set a date with whatever she's trying to do down there. I mean, that's the extraordinary part, isn't it? His accomplices.
Yeah, I mean, Cannon's involvement in all of this is extremely unfortunate because you pretty much drew one of the only judges in the entire federal judiciary who would be deciding some of these matters the way that she does. By and large, the federal judiciary is one of the, I would say it's one of like the strongest pillars that we've got remaining in the whole system. Is the fact that the federal bench is actually unfortunately, some of our Supreme Court justices aside, but by and large, even the conservative members of the federal judiciary are not bomb-throwing insurrectionists, so to speak. They are constitutionalists to their core.
A lot of Trump judges rejected the election fraud suits.
Right. Exactly. A lot of Trump-appointed judges have rejected a lot of. Unfortunately, Judge Cannon has been willing to play along with all of this. it's either she's acting, either she's kind of in the bag for Trump and she's trying to help him, or she is so far in over her head that she doesn't understand the gravity of or the legal precedents around the cases and motions that she's having to decide. Because she's just mangling everything having to do with national security so terribly on this.
Yeah.
But the whole to just try to say it as succinctly as I can. Fundamentally, what she's doing is saying that, hey, federal government, you're citing all of these national security concerns around the evidence that you're going to be presenting, but we're going to let Trump actually see all of this material and then have an argument about whether or not it's actually to be protected, as opposed to having all of that happen off the record in the judge's chambers, where the judge gets to see everything, but the Trump people don't get to have a sneak preview at all of your at all of these things, and get to determine how they're going to be treated in the case. It's not how anything is ever done. It turns the entire notion of having national security for these documents and everything on its head. It's insane.
Back to New York real quick. The headline is Trump lawyers hinting at nuclear option as fraud trial enters second phase. Talking about declaring a mistrial. It's a nuclear option, says one expert, albeit a warhead that'll likely be a dud, given that Engoron has repeatedly declined to pause the proceedings or even reconsider past rulings. I guess this is the Hail Mary they're trying for, right? Because they've already lost. Can you explain to people they've already lost? This trial is just about by how much?
Yeah. So I'm also actually starting a newsletter finally, and I just wrote my first issue, my first entry, and this I will unpack this at length on there, but I'll say it here too, which is that there's basically two issues that get decided in any civil case like this. You've got liability and you've got remedy. Liability is, did they do the bad thing? Remedy is, what do they have to do because they did the bad thing? Like, if they did the bad thing, what do they have to pay in damages, or is there some other non-cash thing that they're going to have to do to make up for the fact that they did the bad thing? In this case, the judge has already decided that that liability is there for fraud. He already decided that, and he already decided that the most extreme of the remedy options is going to actually happen, which is that the corporate charters are going to get canceled and these buildings are going to get placed into receivership and they're going to be sold off. That has been stayed for now by an appellate judge, but that's just a pause button. That doesn't change anything. This is going to get appealed, but we're going to have to wait for that process to take place. To your point on the mistrial thing, then, again, Trump already lost. The question is, what's the score? Like, how badly did he lose? That's what's really being determined here. The whole trial is to determine liability for some of the other claims that the AG's office brought, other than fraud. And the second big thing is to come up with the math for how much Trump is going to owe the state for being liable for fraud. Okay, now this whole thing with him wanting a mistrial, it's like, it's not it's not the nuclear option. We can think of it more of like your Hail Mary metaphor is a bit better one here. It's basically like,
it's a Hail Mary with the nuclear football.
There you go. Not even. It's basically you're on your 20-yard line and you've got your third string quarterback and they're being like, nah, and like throwing it's not going to make it 80 yards. It's going to go like 20 yards. It's going to be a lame duck and it's going to hit some referee on the sideline. It's not going to get to its target. He can't just say, oh, it's a mistrial. It doesn't work that way. And he can move for a new trial, but it's going to get denied.
Yeah.
His big option here is to try to get it overturned on appeal by New York's appellate judges. Right. That process, sadly, is going to take some time to unfold. So we're all going to have to sit around and wait for that to happen, which is going to be super annoying, but that's what's coming.
Yeah. So let's talk about Don Jr. I don't know if he was part of the Trump University.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and Eric, who's obviously the brain trust. He a couple days ago said, we're going to win this thing. So Don Jr., let's see, joking about perjury, first of all. This is like they just smack of a family that's gotten away with stuff like their whole life and think this is all a big joke. But so he appeared. Let's see. He claimed he was not involved in preparing the financial documents used by the company for loan applications. Blah blah blah. I mean, obviously the judge told him to slow down. I'm not sure what would cause that rapid speech. And then, of course, you heard him compare his buildings to the Louvre and his yada yada. I mean. But as I think Letitia James said, I mean, nothing he said refuted any of the facts that they put forward. He was doing a slideshow about how great it has no significance
sales
legally,
pitch.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the timeshare.
It was a timeshare sales pitch, exactly.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It's funny that you say that because the company that the Trump University people hired to come up with the curriculum for Trump University was actually a company that mostly prepared such materials for timeshare rental and sales companies.
Of course.
So it is, in fact, actually how they operate. That is the level at which they are at here.
Wow.
Yeah. I love that the judge ruled that they could use the public relation materials from the website for the fraud trial. The Attorney General's office objected after attorneys for Trump presented a PowerPoint called the Trump Story while Donald Trump Jr. was on the stand. Engoron said, objections overruled. Let him go ahead and talk about how great the Trump organization is. I mean, it really is a process of let's give them some more rope, right?
Right. I mean, in a way, it's actually letting them talk so much about how like, honestly, I actually have a feeling that what Engoron is, I always mispronounce his name. It's actually Engoron. Engoron. But I think part of what he may be doing here is setting them up where it's like, oh, really? You're so successful? That means you can pay more.
Right.
In damages, right?
Yeah.
That means that...
Yeah, let him pay property tax on what he says Mar-a-Lago's worth.
Exactly.
Well, that too. Yeah, because, at that point, it's like, it's actually worth more than you stated. Oh, that means that you committed tax fraud. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that we have to remember, I think there's two big things going on here. Number one is that they're not even really trying to win anymore. They're claiming that they're trying to win, but they're really doing, they're playing to their base, and they're playing this whole woe is me, self-pitying martyrdom game to like pass the hat to get donations for their legal fees. That's number one. And number two, then they're trying to provoke the judge into doing something rash that would actually be an appealable issue in order to have it be declared a mistrial to get a new trial.
Right.
Judge Engoron has made it very clear that he's going to have a firm but level hand on this, and he's not going to let that happen. I don't think he's going to get provoked into going berserk. And then the rest of it is really for them to just, go scam their supporters for donations.
Yeah. On that subject, real quick, Trump tests a gag order again, a tax team of losers and misfits trying to take me down, that will all end up in a mental institution. He's going to keep testing the gag orders, right? So what does Judge Chutkan do in this case, do you think?
I mean, I think that the key is going to be when it gets to be specific things about staff, about members of the court staff, about members of the DOJ staff, about members of family members. I think when Trump has been doing those things, he is going to find himself getting into worse trouble. I think for him to kind of say these more sort of broader things about how, like, it's a bunch of losers and misfits trying to take me down, they're all going to end up in a mental institution. Like, that's probably going to just be like, whatever. Like,
we're trying to bait him into mentioning you so your book sells even more next time.
It'll be interesting to see if that happens. Who knows? But like we'll see. But it's yeah, but this is part of it. This is in the book. Like there's a section about like weathering the counterattacks, because the counterattacks will come. Like he's been leveling it up even more lately, but this was true even for our case.